and welcome to the Minden Dialogue Technical Subcommittee conference call. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, please press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the pound key. Thank you. David Gray, you may begin your conference.
Thank you, operator. We sure do appreciate it, and we appreciate everyone joining us today. Doug, with that, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, David. Good morning, everybody. We've got a lot to do, so I'm going to dive right in. What I'd like to do is start, if you see the agenda, there's a bunch of things that are kind of responses to a variety of questions that came up in the last meeting, so we kind of want to start there, and then we will wrap up, hopefully use the bulk of our time to talk about where we are in terms of technology. David, me looking at the agenda, not all the words are visible. You made it larger, but I can't quite fit it all onto the...
Great. Let me resize it.
Thank you. So I wanted to start with sort of a general updates and any other questions that might be there that you don't see on the agenda that we might want to just put on hold to get to if we can, or fit into some of the conversation. So one of the things that we talked about on Monday was that the Army had agreed to provide technical support to us, to the dialogue process. Pleased to announce that it has begun. We've been having conversations with them, and we do have Christina Curley on the line with us now on behalf of the Army, and so any questions we come up with, she's available to take back to the Army. But I'm going to give her a moment to just kind of introduce herself and provide us sort of an overview of that process. Christina?
Hello, this is Christina Curley. I'm a risk communication specialist with the U.S. Army Environmental Command. I'm going to be on the calls from now on, and I will be participating as sort of the Army's eyes and ears to take back information from the meetings and like this. Questions to the Army will come through the EPA and our subject matter experts, which I have reach back capability to. They're at the Office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Environmental Safety and Occupational Health, and they will work with the EPA to get the responses back to you. So if you have any questions, we will make sure that they get answered in a very timely manner. Thank you.
So as we move through our process, if we have specific requests of the Army, we can identify them as such and help expedite those answers. And we've already begun that process, and I'll talk about it as we move through. Some of the questions that we asked on Monday are being worked through that process right now.
Doug, this is Wilma. Can we ask her if she's technical or not?
Sure. I'll let her answer that and how the process will work to bring all the technical expertise to the table.
I'll be the conduit to the technical experts. I have as I said, the Army subject matter expert is, he will listen in when he can, and I will be informing him of the meetings and everything like that. He will be the one answering the questions that go back through the EPA.
And he's not available to be on these calls?
Not all the time, no.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And any other questions about how that process is going to work? Sam Mims?
Yes, I have a question on that same line. So Christina referred to the Army's expert as he. Can we have his name, or do we have to go through her in order to reach any other Army expert, including him?
You'll be working through me. I will be contacting to the main person who's assigned to this, as well as other subject matter experts that are available to us.
So as far as the committee is concerned, then you are in essence the Army's POC.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so all right, and so we won't know who the other experts are, so we just direct all of our Army questions to you.
Well, actually, the EPA will be taking the questions back, but I will also be providing input to the subject matter experts as well as that.
Yeah. Well, Christine, this is not personal.
Mm-hmm.
This is obviously not directed at you. But since you don't know me, I am a retired Army colonel.
Mm-hmm.
It's just disturbing to me that the Army has refused to come to the table and to participate in this process. So this is not, as I said, this has nothing to do with you, but it just bothers me that an institution that I spent 30 years with is not willing to come to the table and deal directly in this dialogue process. Thank you.
Okay. And just for your information, the person's name that I'm working with back in Washington with the headquarters Department of Army is J.C. King, and he's the Director for Munitions and Chemical Matters.
So we can talk to Mr. King directly sometime?
I have not been told that if he will be on as a participant on these calls or not.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So before we dive in, any of EPA, National Guard, or Louisiana, any updates or information you want to share before we move forward? I'm not suggesting you should, but just make sure any opportunity to put the latest stuff on the table beyond what we're about to discuss. We all comfortable with the agenda?
Before we start with the agenda, this is Slavo Lomnik. May I ask one question?
Yes.
So we had this report sent, I believe yesterday by David, about the technical assistance visit in January 2014.
Yes.
And when I looked through this report, it says in the report that during the test burn that was performed on the site, the test burn was filmed and was also monitored for, I'm not sure for what. Is it possible for us to get both this film and the raw data from the monitoring of this test burn?
Question for, I guess, for EPA. Did you do that test burn? Who conducted the test burn?
Well, I don't know because it doesn't say.
Oh, no, I'm asking the agencies. Was that an Army thing or an EPA thing, or combined?
Doug?
Yes.
This is Jason McKinney. It's my understanding that the state police, it was their burn.
Oh, the state police conducted that.
Yeah, Louisiana State Police out of Bossier City. So,
Slava, we'll take that as a question and try to get an answer for you.
Okay, because it would be, it would be very beneficial for evaluating technologies.
Yes.
If we can get this data, because based on that we can actually look what actually was emitted, what was monitored, and how the actual burning looked like, how the plume looked like.
Yes. Okay.
Hey, Doug.
We got it. We'll put it on the list. Yes. Is that you, David?
It's Colonel Stuckey. Just a point of clarification from what JC said. The state police conducted the burn, but the monitoring, air monitoring, and the filming, I think, was captured by EPA.
Okay. So we'll get a definitive answer on whether or not that can be shared.
Is it possible that this cannot be shared?
We will find out. We'll take that as a question and make sure we get an answer to you, to the group, within the next day or so.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, moving on. I didn't hear any other needs for updates. So what we're trying to do is walk through the various questions that came up in the recent meetings, and I know there's some other questions out there as well. To the degree that we've got questions that directly relate to the work of the technical work group, we'll try to deal with them right here. To the degree that they are broader questions, we'll put them on a list for conversation with the full dialogue committee in the call on Friday. So it was asked whether what knowledge EPA had about M6 treatment that had happened in other regions, and whether anything had happened other than open burn. EPA did prepare a preliminary list of these of their knowledge of this, and they're still waiting for some feedback from additional regions, and that was on the attachment to the materials I sent. One of the attachments to the materials I did send out. So I'm not going to go all the way through it in detail, but when we get a full list and we get the rest of the responses, we can go through and look at that. There was one rotary kiln incineration I saw that was different than an open burn, and a lot of the others were open burns. So as we fill that out and get the full information, we can look at that in more detail. But if anyone has any questions about the preliminary information that was shared, we can take those questions now.
This is Dolores. There were 4 attachments at the end of the Region 10 information that I don't seem to be able to open up, so I don't know if there's anything to do about that.
I will.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I see those as well, and I'll make sure we get those and share those.
Okay, thank you.
The other request of EPA was the status of other materials at Camp Minden.
Doug,
and again,
it looks like Brian had his hand up.
Sorry.
And also,
go ahead.
Can we go back quickly? We had a handful of folks that are on the phone only and not on the webinar. And I know it was Wilma and Bob, and I just heard Dolores. Is there anyone else that's on the phone only? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry,
this is Lynn White.
Lynn, thank you.
Is that everyone on the phone that's not listed here? Okay, good. Thank you. The other table that was shared with you this morning was the table of the various stockpile pieces that were not in the M6 CBI stockpile that have been worked through other response mechanisms. A lot of them are already removed from the site, and that table showed what the material was, how much was there, how much was already how it was shipped and where it went. There's a few that still haven't been shipped, and you'll see those are to be determined. But the vast majority of the different materials have been dealt with or are being dealt with right now. Any questions or further information on that people would like to discuss or get more information about? Okay, well, thank you, EPA, for putting that stuff together quickly. And as I said, we will share more information on the what's happening in other regions as that information comes in. Another question that was asked was the viability of using water immersion as a way of safely transporting material. This is something that we're going to get a more set of comments back from the DoD. It's not a simple answer. The simple answer is yeah, they can be immersed in water and say transported. Obviously, the challenge is transported to where and for what. and how does that immersion in water change the ability to manage the material at the other end and or treat the material at the other end, depending on what you want to do with it. And so we're asking for some insights to the various constraints and opportunities that would create and provide. Obviously, if you do add a lot of water, it creates more volume, more weight for shipping, and also then you have to do something with the water itself once you dewater the material on the other end. So those are all things that we'll find out more about, and hopefully in the coming week get a much more detailed description of that. Any other questions or insights or additional information you'd like to make sure we're looking at as we get those answers? Brian, I see your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, you first, then Brian.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to the EPA for getting us the answers to those questions. I understand that we're asking you all a lot of questions and that we're in a very compressed time frame, and so thank you for answering our questions from Monday.
And as we talked about on Monday, we're sharing stuff as soon as we get it, and so that often means it's not totally complete, but we feel it's better to get everything across as quickly as possible rather than wait for the ultimate complete answer. Brian?
Oh, yes. Hi, this is Brian Salvatore. So I just want everybody to keep in mind here that we are not starting really back at the beginning of this technology of submersing things in water. We understand that a few million pounds were moved off-site at the beginning of the process, and so that information is known, and it should be readily accessible. Some of the concerns that we have here is regardless of whatever method of disposal is chosen here through this process, there is going to be some material on the site, and we've read the documents here about prior tests that have been done, that's going to be less stable than other material. So we're going to need remedies there. We're going to have to anticipate this. We're not going to be able to just say, oh, gee, look, this material here is Class D. We got to act on this. Oh, no, we got to have something in place now. And so it's not just a matter of getting these questions answered, but it's a matter of devising a plan and putting it in water. Yes, it does create some more volume, but it renders the material non-explosive, and that's the most important thing to note here. We'll take the greater volume. We'll deal with that. The most important thing is to get rid of the explosive risk as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think I was hoping everybody kind of understood that as part of what we're saying. And our goal right now is to collect all the information we can so that we can look at the different options and different possibilities in their full light as to what makes the most sense. Any other questions around that? So the next piece that we talked about, which is obviously probably the most important thing everyone's concerned about, is the status of the stability of the material and how that impacts testing, knowledge of the material, technology selection, timeframes, and all the things that we're going to be talking about. And so one of the things we mentioned in the call was we were awaiting the report from the Army on the December TAV, the trip that they made here. And Slavo mentioned this already, that we did share this report. We got it after that meeting, and we've shared it with folks. There is some information about stability. We've also asked the Army if they could provide us a more kind of detailed, plain speaking document that just kind of summarizes all the different pieces of the stability question that we know right now. I think if you look on that document, the TAV document, in the middle of page 2, the paragraph that's identified as B, there's quite a bit of information. It talks about that there are 3 basic configurations for the MC. very large bags, 800-pound bags, 110-pound drums, and 50-pound cardboard boxes. And the priority is the destruction of the 800-pound bags and down through size through the drums and the boxes, and that it's possible that the smaller packed materials might be more stable and be able to be treated last and or reused, and that's less true of the large bags. It reiterates the conversation that we had in previous calls that basically the materials have been moved around such that there's no integrity of the lots. It's hard to understand in any real way the age of the material in a consistent way in the way it's organized on the site. That makes it difficult to do some of this stability testing. And it also reiterates the recommendation of the Army that the material basically be moved only once. That moving it multiple times increases the risk and decreases the stability of the material. So those are some of the things that are reinforced there. Again, we've asked for kind of a nice summary, lay language, full set of facts around the stability, and hopefully we'll have something shortly that gives this information. There's not going to be necessarily new information, but take the existing information and putting in a user-friendly format. Questions about that, where we stand with our knowledge there? Rick? Rick, I see your hand up. Is Rick's line muted?
Yeah, this is David. So I don't have Rick as on the subcommittee, and so if we need to move him over, let me try.
I just opened his line. Does he need to be on the presenter line?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and move him over for me, please.
Okay, sure.
Sorry about that, Rick. Are you on now?
Hello?
Yes, Rick?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Do we have an inventory that breaks down the quantity of 800-pound bags and 110-pound drums and 50-pound boxes from anyone?
I have not seen that, but I assume it exists. Does anyone know? Colonel Stuckey, do we know the relative volume according to those three categories?
Yeah, I'm working to try to ask something about it more.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, we'll have that. We'll have that information.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions around that? And again, this is something we're going to continue to get as much information and in as good a format as we can. Okay, so that brings us to the sort of the main event. And David, if we could go ahead and get the combined table on the screen. It's going to be a little challenging to look at this, but
yeah, give me just a second.
Sure. Oh, it's all built in there? All right, I should have scrolled down. I didn't realize it was all there.
There you go, Doug.
I appreciate that. So what you see here, if you remember, we had begun just kind of laying this out quickly from the information we had from the explosives and ammunition list that the Army had provided. Then EPA added some additional information to this over the last 2 days. And then the Army has also added, and so that the Army's information is the information in red. And I think a couple of key points that they are identifying. Oh, Francis, did you have a question about the previous thing, or is this? See your hands up.
I have a comment. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So I just read the table briefly, and I would like to echo Sam and say thank you to the Army and to Christina for coming to the table to talk to us about that. My concern when I read the table is that it looks like our options are narrowing, and I'm not sure that y'all are aware that we're going to want citations for all of the data that's in the table, and that has been something that was said that we would be able to have citations for any parts of the table. I understand this is just a rough draft at this point, and we did know that our options were going to narrow, but I just want to let the Army know we're very glad that you're here. You need to be aware of that there is no world in which an open burn will go forward at Camp Minden, and we are fully confident that you will not expose the community to those dangers, and we are fully confident that there is a solution besides an open burn that will be found by everyone on this committee that is working very hard together. And so that's just the state of the situation. I just want to make sure that that's clear before we look at this table. So thank you and welcome to the table.
Thank you, Francis. And we are all clear on that. We did agree that we'd put open burn as a comparison technology for us, and that's why that and the fact that this just came and it's a PDF and I couldn't change it is why it is left there at the bottom.
Excuse me, this is Dolores. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
If we look at if we basically start at the end and look at 10, where it deals with open burn, they've left off the nature of the residue and recycle disposal. They've left off the nature of emissions and monitoring, and that's pretty critical to us. I'd like to know why that information isn't put at all.
Right. So, guys, let me just remind you where we are. This is not final information. We've had this conversation, and I want to just keep reiterating it. We're sharing stuff as soon as we get it. We got this input this morning. We didn't have time to do much with it. We just turned around and shared it with you. This table is not complete. It is a draft. That is why there's a giant draft across it. We still intend to try to get information to fill out all these different components and understand all of these different things. We're just trying to have this conversation. This process is moving so quickly. We can't wait to have every last bit of information before we have some of our conversations. Right. So please let's reflect on that with that in mind. That we're really trying to learn as we go. We're learning together. We're on this arc of sharing knowledge and gaining knowledge. This will allow us to ask more questions and get more specific information and make sure we're getting the right information as we move forward. There are lots of gaps in this table. It's very early days in our being able to pull all this together. So if we all just stay patient together, we will get there.
Doug, this is Christy. Can we clarify who has provided information so far for this chart? It's been both the Army, is my understanding, and EPA. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I populated the original one that we shared on Monday directly from that Army document that we had on the explosive and ammunition technologies.
And we have heard requests from a variety of people to add citations. We will be pushing on that. I just want to say that having either of these large agencies be able to put anything on paper in 2 days is a huge step forward. So thank you guys for being able to make that happen. And we are looking forward to additional information. But thanks for that first big step.
So what we want to avoid is drawing any final conclusions This really is it's a complicated discussion. We want to kind of look at some of the basic information we have here and have some conversations around that based on what additional questions we want to ask, what additional information we want to try to get to. Brian.
Oh, yes. So could you just outline a mechanism for us of how we can provide feedback to you if we see any omissions or errors? Omissions, okay.
What I'd like to do, and this is challenging. I admit this is challenging because we have a lot of people on the phone. We're all looking at this for the first time, and we're all trying to absorb this information. What I'd like to do is kind of just walk through this. It'll give us a chance to try to understand some of the information that's here. Let's identify those questions now, that additional information now, and then also, of course, anyone who wants to contact either I or Christy at any time with additional questions, additional information, email us, give us a call. We are all rapidly working between meetings to make this all work. So looking at this, a couple of the key points that, we just want to make sure that we're aware of. The Army put some general comments here at the top. I'm digesting this along with you guys. We're all seeing this morning for the first time. But it is important to point out that all of these systems were designed for different reasons and different kinds of waste material. None was specifically designed for M6 destruction at the scale that we have at Camp Minden. This is a fairly unique set of circumstances in terms of looking for alternative technology. A lot of the bulk M6, my understanding is has been done historically with open burn. So at the volume we're talking about, all of these technologies will need to be thought about and thought through and how they can be applied and how they can be worked for that. That's not to say that we're discounting anything right off the bat. It's just we just have to be aware that that's the context within which we are considering these technologies and looking at these sorts of things. The list of technologies as we move through are the ones that the same as we had before. These are all technologies that were either on that ammunition exclusive list or were to us at the 212 meeting. To the degree that technologies are in development or that other vendors out there have technologies that might work or could work, those are not things we have on the table right now, largely because the ability to ramp up those technologies, to test those technologies, to do the pilot and field testing that would be required to see them work, appears to be outside of our window of opportunity as quickly as we need to move on M6. I'm not shutting that door entirely. I'm saying that's why the list of technologies was put together the way it was. Some of these technologies, as we talked about, are physically located at places that can't be moved. Others are portable and could be implemented at Camp Minden. What I want to focus on is some of the additional comments the Army has put in here, because that's what's new from the last time we looked at this, and then give us a chance to talk about sort of where we are in total and how we want to move forward in thinking about these technologies and perhaps screening and moving to a short list and how we might do that. It's not as clean as we would like. It's not as clean as we were hoping. We're not at the place where we have all the information about all the technologies to populate this chart in a way that's quite yet fully useful for us. But there is a lot of information here that is useful. No new information was added to the first technology on the industrial waste processor and thermal decontamination area. Looking at the APE in the second second row, if I can get this to scroll, he notes that this is not a mobile system and probably not available for use for what we're doing at this time. It is also a rotary kiln incinerator, and so there are a couple of different incineration technologies here, and I know those are not at the top of anyone's list to begin with, but we do want to make sure we're looking at everything and understanding what's possible and what may not be possible. And again, I'm just going over this at very high level. If people want to weigh in, please do. Slavo?
Yes. Let me say my background a little bit for those people who don't know it. I'm a combustion expert and combustion emission expert. And when I look at these tables with the input from the Army, so generally, the conclusion, from my point of view when I looked at it, that all the detonation chambers are not suitable for M6 propellants. And I believe this is because of much lower explosive properties of propellants compared to the TNT. They are probably designed to be used with much higher explosive materials like TNT. In general, when I looked over all those technologies that were released, and also when I looked in the M6 disposal feedback from the regions that you sent also before, it struck me that using kiln incinerators might actually be the best way to deal with these materials under the conditions that the kiln would be kind of possible to set up on the site in some reasonable time manner, and with properly equipped with a post-combustion treatment.
So, okay, thoughts or comments about that? One of the things, so Slavo, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that we need to look at is capacity too, and the rotary kiln incinerator might have one of the larger capacity ways to do this than some of these other simple batch processes.
Well, that's true. One is the batch capacity, and secondly is actually what kind of a process is used inside the chamber, because the detonation chambers, they are not, what they do, they just blow up things, okay, generally speaking.
Yes.
So there's no treatment whatsoever, and you need to have a really highly explosive materials that it can be used in it. And M6 propellants are not as explosives.
Right. So the Army gave us a 60% figure for M6 versus TNT.
Right. So I think that limits, the least that we can disregard generally all the detonation chambers, because first of all their capacity is very low. In general, they are used, to treat much smaller amounts of the materials and with much bigger explosive properties.
And if you look at the static detonation chamber, which is the next item on the list, the Army's making similar comments to that in terms of that it can process M6, but it's certainly recommended for something in this larger quantity.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me, this Dolores?
Yes, Dolores.
We're keeping in mind, right, that we may have to partner so that one, say the DaVinci might work combined with something else.
Right, that's true.
Yes, and we may find that multiple, right, we have to keep in mind that one technology or one system or one treatment may not possibly do the job at the volume and speed that we're talking about. So right now, again, we're not making any conclusions. We're just trying to have big picture conversations around these different kinds of technologies so people understand the potential applicability and the potential constraints that we're needing to understand.
Doug, this is Bob Polino. I need to ask Slavo a question about the rotary kiln. About the rotary kiln, what temperatures have you experienced most of them operate at, and what is the DRE for those rotary kilns?
Okay, well, everything depends on the different rotary kilns about the construction. So you can get pretty high temperatures, especially at the bottom of the kiln where the burners are located. So, you open with a flame. The DREs are dependent on what's the actual construction of the rotary kiln. That's why I specifically said that they have to be equipped with the secondary combustion chambers, where you have non-destruction of some of parts of the material formation of pollutants in the first chamber. You have the secondary chamber that can actually reach 6 nines.
Okay, the secondary chamber then could get 6 to 9 DREs, right?
Correct. And rotary kilns are used quite often even for the hazardous waste disposal.
Right. Okay.
And
do I understand also, Doug, that M6 is only found at Camp Minden? McAllister does not have any M6?
I can't speak to that. Does anyone have an answer to that? I think that the better question really is, and what we hope to find is, have any of these technologies been used for M6? And I think the answer is not at the volumes we find it, but I don't know the answer about at all. That's a question. Francis?
Yes. I had a comment about the detonation chambers. So I know this is information that we're still trying to get, but I just want to bring back up again that, the propellants, like M6, were part of the chemical weapons that these detonation chambers were originally designed to destroy. And so wanted to make sure that we were getting the information about when in the past propellants, whether on their own or part of a munition, were destroyed in the detonation chambers. And then I also wanted to comment that it's my understanding that the net explosive weight limits on the different detonation chambers, because I think the Army report said that M6 is a 60% of the TNT, or the net explosive weight equivalent. Forgive me for messing up these terms. That seems to me to indicate that you would be able to do more of it at a time within one of those chambers, because it has a smaller net explosive weight compared to its actual physical weight. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so if you look at the one that I have up right now, the static detonation chamber, which a technology that was on both lists, the ammunition and explosive list, and the list that was shared with us at the meeting on the 12th. On the right-hand side, it talks about throughput, and so the maximum quantity of TNT is a little over 5 pounds. Net explosive weight, so it could do 11 pounds of M6. And there again, the challenge becomes one of volume, because these are, and someone, please always correct me if I say something wrong. I'm just trying to help people process this information. But these are essentially batch processes. You put that poundage in there and basically explode it, and then you do the next batch, and you've got it. It's not a continuous. It's not a continuous.
no treatment, but I wanted to clear out about this capacity for TNT. It rather refers to the explosive power on TNT, because, what it means is that if you put more TNT, the structural integrity of the chamber would be at risk.
That's right. So there you go. So that's, if you have 5 pounds of TNT, it's going to cause an equivalent explosion to 11 pounds of M6, and that's going to be the limit to what that particular system could handle in a single batch. So everybody kind of understand that basic concept of how these detonation chambers work. They're basically enclosed. They are what they sound like. They're enclosed chambers to blow the stuff up, and by blowing it up, you've now eliminated the risk it's going to blow up because you just blew it up.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything to it. It just explodes it.
Just explodes it, and you've reduced that risk. Now you have the residue from that, and that you take out of there and move on to your next process or disposal, and that's how that works. So, and by the nature of that, so that you can only do so large an explosion at any given time, that's what limits the volume you can do.
Now, another problem, let me put it into the detonation chamber, that it doesn't necessarily reduce the mass of the material by itself to a large extent. What it makes is only that it's non-explosive anymore.
Right, so it's not incinerating the material as you would in a kiln or an incinerator, which would then dramatically reduce the mass.
So after that, you still need to take the residue and do something with it.
Right. So the next technology is also a form of detonation chamber, the Da Vinci vacuum integrated chamber, and has similar kind of limitations in terms of volume, because it is the same sort of thing. It was not designed for bulk propellants. It doesn't mean it could not be used, but that's not what it was designed for. And again, it was on both lists, although the Army notes that it is actually not DDESP approved for chemical munitions. It's the same kind of technology. They use explosion to address the risk. The next technology is also an explosive destruction system and I'm not sure I fully understand this one in terms of how the actual system works, but it is kind of the same sort of thing. It's a containment vessel where the explosion takes place. It appears not to be readily available to the materials at Camp Minden. As we said, a lot of these systems are fully booked, and that's one of the challenges. Anyone have? This is not one I have any familiarity with. Does anyone have any familiarity? They want to add any details about what this is being used for and why it's not available and probably cannot be available, and it appears not to be one you could build on site at.
Well, what it says here in the comment from the Army, that it's using the external detonation as a mean of the destruction of the materials. So they put some additional explosives to detonate it.
You're adding explosive capability, and I assume then dealing with those explosives as well.
Right.
So the next technology also appears to probably not directly related to M6, which is tactical missile demilitarization. That actually tries to recover the energetics from the propellant and the warheads. I see, Francis, you have your hand up?
That's old, sorry.
That's an old one? The next one is also a controlled detonation chamber that is referred to, you may have heard it referred to as the demo process. The Army notes that it's not suitable for the destruction of M6 as designed and approved. And if you're not looking at the screen, we're on page 8 of the table. On page 9, now we're moving away from the explosive destruction technologies. There's a handful of more chemical systems. Supercritical water oxidation is one. The Army didn't add any comments there. That's basically the same information we had from last time. You may remember there used to be a system at Camp Minden. It's since been moved, is my understanding. And again, we'd have to get more information about this. This does look like one that actually has higher level throughput and capacity than some of the others, but we don't have any insight to its exact applicability. There's a comment there that EPA added that noted that M6 would need to be prepared to go into this material, such as grinding or alkaline hydrolysis. So it would require additional preparation to be able to go into such a system as this.
Yeah,
Brian?
Yes, I have a question in general here about the RE factor that's being applied. That's the relative effectiveness factor of M6 versus TNT. I've seen numbers that have been calculated by our own state police and also in various documents for these single-base propellants that are higher than the number that I'm seeing here. I'm seeing something here that's close between 0.5 and 0.6. And I would like to I'm asking this as a question, I would like to get it nailed down as to what the source is that we're getting for this RE factor here in this table, and how accurate is that, how sure can we be about it?
Could you, the RE being the
RE is what you would relate a pound of M6 versus a pound of TNT.
So that 60% explosive equivalent, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, what is the source of that and how reliable is that? Because I've seen various other numbers, some up as high as 0.9.
That came from the Army, from their expert. It deals with this all the time. I would say it's pretty reliable.
Yes.
We can ask for a more precise citation, and perhaps it's not always exactly 0.6. It might be circumstantially specific too, so we don't know.
Yeah. Well, nitrocellulose itself is much higher than 0.6. And we do have some deterrent in here in M6. So I'm just surprised that it has that big of an effect, these deterrents. And there's still 85% or 86% nitrocellulose in M6.
Yeah, I don't.
I think it's because M6 is modified in purpose that it's not explosive. It's supposed to be just a propellant.
Well, it doesn't. That's not really what the RE factor is relating to. And in fact, under a closed system, the deflagration can turn into a detonation, even with M6.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
good.
So Brian, what is the bigger point though? Help people understand why would that make a difference? You're just talking about
It's very important to assign this RE factor accurately, because that's going to allow you're comparing numbers here on these tables that have been assessed for TNT, and if you're going to relate it to a mass of M6, you need to have a very accurate number that we know the source of and that it's been tested and it's reliable with M6. It can't be something that somebody's just guessing on, because it could make a difference in 20, 30, 40% in the amount of
Correct.
capacity of these various detonation units.
That is correct, but I, for right now, that would be the difference between slow and slower. So, I mean, I think we're just looking at this at a big picture level for the moment, and we'll try to get a citation and make sure what our level of confidence is that the M6 as translated to TNT, that we're confident that that number is accurate.
Okay.
Hydrolysis was something that was on the list from our February 12th meeting as well. This is a field system. As the Army said, it could be set up quickly, but that they're suggesting it is not suitable for M6 because of the nature of the M6 material. And then finally, they did not add any comments to the actodemal humic acid processing there. And as we noted earlier, we did add that line as a comparison.
Doug, this is Bob Flanoy.
Go ahead.
Going back to the hydrolysis, Euthyphema, you know what that's for, the Army hazardous waste group, toxic group. They've come down with hydrolysis and also solvent extraction, and we should get an expansion of this process because as Brian and I have looked at it, the hydrolysis looks like a feasible way to deal with the munitions. And I think we need to expand on that hydrolysis. I don't know. I haven't seen the latest chart. I'm on page 3 of this working list of potential technologies. But I think that's one we really need to zero in on, that having some possibilities.
So if you look down at page 9, you'll see in red the Army's comments about the hydrolysis.
Okay,
and
is that a new? That must be a new document. I haven't seen it.
That's the one we sent this morning. I sent. Yeah.
I didn't get it, so I probably did, but I haven't checked all my emails. I'm getting inundated with emails.
Sure, understood. So when you get a chance to look at that, if you could frame some specific questions around that would be good.
Okay.
And I think that's really what we would ask everyone on the call is, it is kind of hard for us to sit here and understand all the questions we want to ask, but we can talk about this generally and in big picture and the kinds of things we want to ask. But if those of you, especially, are professors on the phone, as you look at this in more detail and can frame very specific questions and or point us to very specific information that can help us explain these things better, please do that. Brian, do you have your hand up again, or was that from before?
Oh, it's again.
Okay, go ahead.
All the items that have been addressed so far today, it's these last 2 items here that I'm least satisfied with how they've been addressed in this conversation today. So, first of all, the hydrolysis units, they do have great potential to be used with M6. We know that these pellets can be digested under basic conditions. We also know that under basic conditions, you can render nitrocellulose non-explosive, and you generate 2 different products in the process. You generate cellulose, and you'll generate a combination of nitrate and nitrite from that. And so it does have potential there. One of the disadvantages of not having a technical expert from the Army willing to address these questions in real time here is that we move slower. The other thing about the ActoD-mill process, which ArcTech developed, okay, ActoD-mill, if you look at it in its entirety, is a fertilizer process. Okay, I believe that process is not the only way that this material can be repurposed. Humic acid is not introduced until about the third step of that process. The first two steps, the digestion and hydrolysis steps, are the ones that render the material non-explosive. So I would just say that this needs to be listed differently in here. ArcTech is good because that's the vendor, and they have a unique approach. And I take issue here with this scale that you're showing here because 500 pounds per batch, that may be if you have to go and add the humic acid. But if we're talking about just the first two steps, that is the hydrolysis, the digestion hydrolysis steps, that can be scaled up probably more than anything else on this sheet. And Dr. Walia at ArcTech is somebody that has called me. I generally don't talk to the vendors, but he called me just to clarify some questions that I had about what are the pieces of equipment that he uses. And generally they're able to use asphalt mixers, which can work on a very large scale. And this can be done on site, and the material can be rendered non-explosive on site. And it can be done very quickly. And you don't have to use the humic acid step. That is if you're going to purpose it as a fertilizer. I have good reason to believe that materials with DNT in it, such as M6, should not be repurposed as a fertilizer, at least with not without a lot of additional information, which I've yet to see.
Well, let me chip in on it a little bit because I think that generally the technology of hydrolysis is interesting. However, there is one problem. I believe that hydrolysis also requires a grinding of the M6 material to a powder. And
no, that's not true. That's not true. If you use the ArcTech process, the digestion occurs chemically. And so you don't have to powder it. It is done in these asphalt mixers. That is the equipment that has been approved by the ESB. And this has been done many times in field tests, and it has ESB approval. It does not require the powdering. That is another alternative that you may have to use with other hydrolysis techniques, but not with the ArcTech process.
Okay, well, that's fine. If we can check it that it doesn't require the powdering of the material, because this might be a problem.
I have talked with the company, and Mickey Walsh has as well, and we both know this to be the case. And when we have our industrial day, the company can present this themselves.
So it does look like all these technologies we need a lot more information on. And I want to be clear that I'm not a proponent of any of the knowledge here. I'm just sharing what we've gotten on these tables right now to help us have this conversation. So this was the information we were able to get from a variety of sources. I'm not suggesting any of it's absolute. So we want to do more with getting more detail here. I think in general the conversation around the chamber process and its constraints, is something to talk about. But absolute throughput and absolute, which ones might work best and which ones might give us a chance at some volume. We're not trying to make any final conclusions here. We're just trying to understand the nature of these different technologies. I see Brian and Bob both with hands up.
Correct. No, mine's down now. I'm going to take it down.
So, who's still up? Bob?
Okay. Looking at all of these technologies, it's mind-boggling for most people. It's something that I've had 40 years dealing with environmental issues like incineration and so forth, and I've dealt with McAllister years ago on pink water. I think we need to, in my professional opinion, is that we need to have a pre-bid conference within the next 10 days to find who the players are and what their capabilities are. I propose that as something that I would think, on a short, we're on a schedule, tight schedule. We need to be looking at these people that can bring these technologies, and they need to come to a pre-bid conference that we could have either in Shreveport or in Minden, and ask questions that you can't ask over the phone sometimes, and you have problems. A face-to-face pre-bid conference, I think, would be a way to really start this thing moving rapidly.
Right. So let me turn to Colonel Stuckey on that, because I think that would be a question for them, and it is looking like there are a lot of questions for people who actually have the hands-on knowledge about these technologies.
What do you say?
Yes, Colonel Stuckey. I guess I'll make my comment short and sweet. I'm not a contracting person, and I'm not going to touch it. I will ask the question.
Okay. So folks understand that when you're in procurement, there are a whole different set of legal issues, and he would have to look at how he could do that, and if he's able to do that. I do think one way or another, it does look like trying to get more information from the people who actually design and build these things would be dramatically helpful for this group. Francis.
Sorry, I had to jump off the call for a second, but I just wanted to say that I'm sort of deeply uncomfortable with the way that this call has gone today, and I feel like we need to have the committee members be the ones that are discussing more of the technical aspects of these different technologies, and we need to be backing that up with research and citations. And I understand that it's just a rough draft, but I feel like these conversations are going to shape our future conversations, and we have to be doing this the right way. I also want to comment that this has never been done before. There has never been, as far as I know, in the history of this country, a pile of hazardous waste that has had to be disposed of as quickly as this has to be done. And so just the way that the Explosive Safety Board has said none of these technologies will work, that's looking backwards at what's been done in the past. We have to find a solution here, and so we have to be creative, and we have to find something that will work and not just rule out all of these things because they haven't dealt with bulk M6 propellant in this particular way in the past.
Thank you. That's absolutely right. And please don't, just because I'm happening to try to read what's here on the table, I'm not proposing or presenting myself as any sort of expert. The experts filled this out, that we're just trying to use it as a way to start conversation and make sure that we understand what additional information that the committee wants and what questions we need to get answered.
It's just, in my opinion, if those are the comments that are coming from the Army, then Christina should be the one reading them, or J.C. King, or if they're coming from the EPA, then they should be the ones reading them, and they should be saying where they got that information. And I think that what your role would be to, have that conversation, go back and forth between them and us to ask questions, because since you are the facilitator and you're a neutral party, and none of that information has been backed up with citations yet, it's just a process concern that I'm concerned about how this process is working right now. I know you're doing it to save time, but I think we have to be very careful about how we have this conversation, and we need to make sure that we're doing it backed up by science and not just, this preliminary opinion that we don't have citations on yet.
I don't disagree.
Thank you, and thanks for all your hard work, Doug. I didn't mean to be very critical.
Moving faster than any of us would like, and we're doing our best here. Bob?
seems like a little bit earlier I heard of Mr. J.C. King on the speaker. Is that the gentleman from the Army that Christina was telling us about? Is he listening to this conversation?
This is Christina. Yes, Mr. King was on the call earlier. As I said, he can't be on the call all the time. He had another meeting to go to. That's why I'm listening in for him, and I will take his concerns back to him.
Thank you. And what is his expertise?
Let me get it exactly. It's munitions.
You know, why don't we do this? We'll make sure we send out a bio or a CV or something on him to the group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He has been in charge of munitions.
What they said last time was
years.
Director of Munitions and
Chemical Matters. Yeah. He's an EOD expert.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Francis, do you have a new question, or is your hand just still up?
It's still up. I'm probably going to have a new question in a second, though. Thank you.
just leave it there. So any other just big general reactions, comments, desire for more information? And again, you know, we're not trying to draw any final conclusions from this. We're just trying to start to populate this and understand what we know, what we don't know, and trying to, you know, as people have said, we'll be backing this up with citations and asking for further information.
So this is Slavo. I would have one comment. If we can request from the technology providers for these different methods that we have listed in the table, if I'm sure there have to be done some analysis of the residue remaining from the process. What kind of a residue is being produced, and what kind of a material does it contain? What's the actual decrease of the volume or mass compared to the starting material to the ending material? And if there is any other source of potential pollutants being formed, like for example, when we have these different hydrolysis treatment processes, I would imagine that there is some solvent leftovers or some sludges or something. If any analysis have been done on that also, and what kind of volumes per ton or kilogram of a material treated. And I think this information will put us forward into a selection of methods.
Right. So I think, you know, we've been talking about this for a couple of days. It's you know, we facilitators will ask these questions, push on this, and see what's possible. You know, I think it really does get challenging with the procurement environment, and we'll just have to ask what's possible. Mickey.
After Mickey, I'd like to say something, please.
Mickey, I see your hand is up.
Sorry, I had to get unlock my phone. It was on mute. One of the things, and I appreciate Dr. Slavo's comments relative to you know, understanding of the technologies, and we've been doing research within the Concerned Citizens Group on the various technologies and what our options are almost for the last 2 months. Had several conversations with several different agencies. The process that we've outlined here is that, at least my understanding of it is that we're supposed to submit to the committee anybody that is interested in presenting a technology, so the committee can put that technology on the list of preferred technologies. And I think what we're looking at here is basically our list from the DOD with their comments on them. And so this is an educated opinion on the part of the DoD from their experience in the past as to what's going on, and not necessarily an in-depth look at current technologies that may or may not have been tried. So there's a lot of other things that are going on in the background that are going to add to this list. And that information, as I understand, we're supposed to turn in to you, Christy. Is that correct?
Yes, or Doug. Yep.
Yeah. Any information that folks have, we'll send it to us and we'll get it on the table.
Okay.
We're trying to get much knowledge as we can. This is all about collecting knowledge right now. We're trying to get as much knowledge as we can.
So relative to collecting knowledge, one of the things that we're concerned about is the result of the process of soliciting for information by the LNG, by the various vendors that are interested in submitting on this. There's already a process that's begun where those vendors are submitting information to the LNG, or they're getting their information together. And because of that, there's also some proprietary information that we will never get that we need to have. So so we have almost a blackout on information until that process is completed. So one of the things that we've been discussing amongst ourselves is that it would be really great if we had what we called a technology day to have an opportunity for those vendors to come in and explain their technologies. And I think because of the proprietary nature of the bids and how the bidding process and procurement process goes, is that we have that opportunity post-bid submittal, because by that point, once the bids are submitted, there's a date. There are no more bids submitted after that time frame. Then we can get the best and most information from those folks that we can. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mickey. Bob?
Okay, so remember Wilma's up too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wilma, you were there first. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wilma.
Okay. So based on the information we have on this multi-page table, it looks like the kinds of technologies in general are rotary kiln, supercritical water oxidation, and hydrolysis. And if we're willing to just get rid of the detonation chambers based on the information we've heard, then under these three, we need to get more information, and it could be from different vendors. And I think we can do a lot of this by, if Colonel Stuckey says it's okay, invite the vendors in for each one of these categories to tell us on a conference call and answer our questions on a conference call, and start getting the real details of these three types. And I know they're much broader than just the words I'm using.
Right, and so and partly that's. Thank you for that. And I don't know if we're all going to get comfortable there, but that's part of what we're trying to do is get a big enough picture understanding and a clear enough picture understanding is where do we want to focus our time and energy to really understand technologies that have the best chance of being something that could work. And so that your summary just there sort of starts to do that, and I'd be interested in other people's reaction to that.
I really want, excuse me, Ms. Dolores.
Go ahead,
I really
Dolores.
want to support what she says. I think it's very important. It'd be great if we could do it for next Monday and have representatives from these three processes to talk with us.
Okay.
This is Slavan. I think personally it would be better if it can be done in person than actually over the phone.
Definitely better in person.
Okay. I've got a few hands up. Let me get to them. Francis, are you active in a question?
Yeah, I have 3 questions, in fact, Doug. So
go right ahead.
Yeah. Okay. My first, they're really, some of them are comments, sorry. My first one is that I had to get off the call, but so I missed some things, but I would not want to take detonation chambers completely off the table, especially as part of a sort of unit solution. And I'm okay, I guess, with starting with scro and hydrolysis maybe as the first things we're looking for, but I don't want to take any of these things off the table because we must find a solution. But other than that, I do agree with what Dr. Subra said about getting these people here in person as soon as possible. So we're talking about real companies that actually exist and would be willing to do this job. And then do you want me to save my other two questions for after we finish talking about this, or would you like me to go ahead with them now?
Are they about the table, or are they additional?
They are questions for agencies. They are not off the table. Mm-hmm.
Hold those. Let's wrap up our conversation about the technologies and the table. Bob?
Yeah, what I said earlier, my opinion was that we need to have a free bid conference. That's what I hear reiterated by Mickey and others, that we need to do something there. And on this table that we're looking at, bioremediation is the use of bacteria to degrade polyaromatics and benzene, ethylbenzene in the petroleum industry. And that's something that we don't see on this, but the Idaho National Laboratories have been working on bioremediation of explosives. You can go online and get their study. And the 10th annual conference of hazardous waste research, one of the topics there was bioremediation of explosives, contaminated soils, as we have at Camp Minden. The soils are contaminated. Bacteria have been used in many cases, and it's a lot cheaper degradation and removal process of the toxics by using bacteria that are specially mutated to devour the contaminants. And that's something that we haven't even seen on any list of potential technology. So bioremediation is something that's been around for 30 years, and it's been used in the oil patch quite frequently to remove and degrade benzene, ethylbenzene, benzene being a leukemogen, ethylbenzene, toluene, you name it. It's something that we need to ask these agencies, like the Idaho National Laboratory, do they have studies further than what I've seen about the bioremediation of explosives?
Thank you. Brian?
Yes. So I want to concur with what Francis said, that it may be too early to take anything off the table yet. But we do have more information each time we meet. And based on the available information that we have, I agree with what Dr. Subra said about her rankings. I just want to also add that hydrolysis is a very general process. So it can be done in the Army's hydrolysis units, or it can be done through the first two steps of the actodemo process. And so I just want to clarify that as a chemist, that just because we're using the word Arctech here doesn't mean that their process is not hydrolysis. It certainly is. It begins with hydrolysis.
Okay. Slavo, did you have another comment?
Right. I wanted to comment on the bioremediation. It's true that the bacterial remediation, bioremediation, is a very efficient way to deal with especially polyaromatic hydrocarbons and even cellulose. The only problem is that the bacterial remediation is a long time process. It's not something that you can treat the emergency situations with bioremediation.
I agree. It's several months, maybe years of degrading those contaminants.
Okay. Any other comments on this table, or our overall process concerns, desire for the vendor day and or some sort of vendor process, and the way we're looking at sort of the different groups of technologies here in terms of their most likely applicability to the problem here at Camp Minden? Anything to add to any of that that's just been done? Brian, is your hand up new, or is that from before?
Oh, that's old. I'm on two screens, so sorry.
Okay.
Guys, this is Christy. On this, go ahead, Francis.
Okay, so this is a little bit harder to figure out how to handle, but there is at least one real company that would like to take the M6 and repurpose it into gun ammunition, and they have submitted a proposal, I believe, to the EPA as well as to the state of Louisiana. And I understand that it's sort of hard for them to publicly talk about their proposal because it's not like they have a patent on technology in the way that some of the, the SCLO or the hydrolysis companies might. But that is a very real possibility, and I think that we need to figure out a way that we can talk about that possibility either with that company or other companies that would do that as a very viable option, and figure out if we can get that company to come to the table or other companies that might be willing to do that.
Right, and so as companies have approached EPA, they have referred them to the procurement process with the GARD, and I believe that particular one you're pointing to did do that. So I think they're one of the companies that is in the list of 8 the GARD has right now. So
but
I think that's
this committee. That's my question.
Right, and so that's the question is. Right, beyond the list we have right now, if there are some folks who have put in their information to the process, if there's some way to have access to that, and that I think that ties into the whole idea of this vendor day or whatever it is ends up being. The bigger question simply is, how do we get access to the knowledge that's out there in the field with these various technologies in a very constructive and interactive way, and so that's the question we're going to take back from this meeting to the agencies. I see Bob and Brian with new hands up.
Right, Doug. As we all seem to be talking about a day for, say, presenters, industrial day or something, a pre-bid conference, let's get a show of hands and let's move forward to be getting, say, EPA and the Army on board. So let's make this a reality within the next 10 days because we got a time schedule here. I can't take the rest of the spring in all of these meetings. I've got other commitments, and other people do too. So, we need to get things lined up so we can get the word out, whether it's in the Wall Street Journal or it's on the webpage for EPA or the U.S. Army. We need to go ahead and set a date that we might go ahead and commit to a pre-bid conference.
I hear you. I hear everyone. I understand. I wish it were simply that simple. All I can say is we will have the conversations with the agencies and try to understand how do we make this work within the context of the procurement process which is happening.
Right.
That's the challenge for the agencies and for the GARD specifically at this point.
Okay.
But didn't they just extend everything till March the 18th?
They did, correct.
So why was that extended if there's this static procurement process that's in place right now?
They extended it so that we could get through our process and not interfere with that. And so we're going to have that conversation. It isn't an ideal circumstance from any point of view.
Yeah, because my understanding was that meant if we locate someone new, they have until the 18th to get in their paperwork. So do I understand that correctly or not?
I believe they are accepting input until that time. I believe that's what it means. Colonel Stuckey, is that correct?
Yes.
Ron, this is Christy Bellico. Colonel Stuckey, do you have concerns about a vendor conference day that would be done through the dialogue process? I just know we don't want to get on the wrong side of these procurement laws and have anybody that has to be set aside because they inappropriately communicated in some way that then they can't compete in the vendor process. So that's what we're worried about here, folks. And I know in the AQUA process, I'm sure the Army was the one that led that vendor day, and I'm trying to remember whether all citizens were involved and able to see it, or if it was just citizens that had signed all the confidentiality papers. I don't remember. But Colonel Stuckey, can you talk to this issue and that?
I wish I could, but I can't. Like I said earlier, I'll have to ask that question.
So that's where we are, guys. I mean, unfortunately, there's a whole world of procurement law and policy that has to be explored to see what can be done, and that I don't believe anyone's going to leave this call without knowing that is both the desire of the community and something that would dramatically help this process to have access to that kind of information. The question is how and when and at some level if that can happen within the context of where we are right now. And if not, then we have to look at other ways of trying to achieve the same desired outcome, and we'll have to talk about that as well. So, as Colonel Stuckey has noted, the right people have to be talked to about what's possible. Vicki?
Hello?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Okay. Hey, I have a question about relative to the procurement process. Of course, that's near and dear to my heart because I participate in that process with governmental agencies almost daily. And my question is that getting the information from the vendors is difficult because of the competitive nature of the bid. We're understanding that. I think what we can do prior to those bids being turned in and opened, and once they're opened, they're now in the public domain. But prior to that, we're free to contact the companies to find general information about their process. But the things that really make the difference, the little secrets that make a significant difference in between the technologies that will make somebody go, this is really what we need, are those things that they're probably and most likely not going to reveal. So a post-bid conference, a decision doesn't have to be made immediately on opening the bids. It can be made after opening the bids, and I would say a post-bid conference by those submitting to all parties involved in this would be extremely beneficial to be able to understand which of those technologies are the best for the situation we have here. So I would ask the LNG, Colonel Stuckey, if he could check on that in particular.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to get a clear set of rules here for everyone.
Okay. Thanks.
Brian?
Yes. So something that is not addressed in this table at all is a potential repurposing stream for the material. And it would be my preference that if something does not have to be burned, why burn it? Now, if you're going to generate waste, as in a school process, then you call that waste, and hopefully it's going to be minimal and not large amounts. But if you're going to generate materials through a mild hydrolysis process that can be repurposed, we need to incorporate that into these criteria, and that's not being done yet.
Okay. That's two different things. One is whether residue can be repurposed or whether the actual M6 material can be repurposed. And I believe that the reason we don't have a repurposing on here is because the nature of the list of technologies that we got, those were not on the list. And so this is further the desire to see what else is out there that may be possible, but isn't on any ESB list right now.
So this is Wilma. Can I add something?
Yes, please.
So we had a number of these conversations about two phases: one, making it non-explosive, and then secondly, making it non-toxic or meeting the hazardous materials criteria. So it's difficult to put that on the list, but it really needs to be on the list as well, so that when we look at the process, we look at where is it going, how is it going to be handled, and how are you going to make it non-toxic after you make it non-explosive.
So I think one thing we can definitely put on the list is the question of it's there, but we can be more specific. Is what is the residue and does it have the potential for reuse, right? So that question's on the list. We don't have good information in those boxes yet, but the question's there. The other piece of that I was hearing that Brian said was, is there a technology that doesn't do the destruction, goes right to reuse, right? And so with some of the more stable material, there are possibilities for that. There are not, from what I understand, the technologies that we have, because of the nature of where they come from, do not do that. These are destruction technologies mostly. But some of these would be, some of these chemical technologies maybe are closer to that. There is a reuse proposal or recycle proposal. That's the one Francis was talking about. That we do know about went to the GARD process, but we're going to see if we can find that information and share that information within all the other conversations we've been talking about.
Well, okay, Doug, but one thing that you said that I don't agree with is you said that some of the material, the more stable material, would be subject to this reuse process. I don't agree with that, because if you can move it out to an incinerator or a SQO unit or even a burn tray like they were planning to do, you can move it to a coffin filled with water, and that will render it non-explosive. That not only buys you safety, but it buys you time. Now, if the material is not pre-processed on site, then that's going to be more complex in terms of the transportation issue. So there's your challenge. You save time on site, but you have these regulatory special containers that you need to transport them in. If you process the material on site mildly so that it can be repurposed, that will simplify the transportation. Of course, the DOT has to certify anything, but so there are advantages to going either route, and there could be potential hurdles, there are regulatory hurdles on the transportation. But I don't see anything as posing any obstacle to a repurposing plan either way.
Okay, so that we need to ask those questions and get more information about that.
Okay, thank you.
Francis.
Is this for my questions for the agencies?
I think we're in the wrap up and ask additional questions mode.
Okay, thank you. Colonel Stuckey, I believe a week ago we asked about the possibility of having citizens sit on the working group that the National Guard or the state is using to look at the quotes once that process is complete. And I just wanted to follow up on that. I understand that has been done in other situations like this, and if there is any possibility that citizens or local scientists could be sign confidentiality agreements and be in the room just to see what's going on, that is something that we would like, and I wanted to know if you had an answer on that.
I don't have an answer yet, but it is being looked at.
Okay, and then my next question is for Christina. We have asked this question of Sam Coleman, I believe, every time that we've been on the phone, and so now I'm going to ask it to you because you're on the phone this time. And that is, we understand that parallel to the work of this dialogue committee, there is a legal process that has to be done so that whatever remedy surfaces through this process can be implemented. And that is that the AOC must be amended to allow for the selection of another remedy. And we've asked Sam every time, and we understand that there is conversation happening about that. But my question to you is, what is the status of a draft amendment to the AOC to allow for another remedy? I just want to remind you that there will be no world in which an open burn is allowed to go forward at Camp Minden, and we are confident that you will do everything in your power to help us find a solution that is not an open burn. And because of that, we need to know about the status of an amendment to the AOC.
I have no information on that, but I will gladly take that question back.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is that it, Francis, or do you have others?
I think those are the only two questions I have at this time. Thank you.
Anyone else with any final thoughts or comments before we close this call and move to public comment?
This is Bob Flournoy. Doug, we're coming up to March 1st, Sunday, so, we don't have many days left to really get this thing, to get to some solution, and recommendations. So we all just need to keep in mind that we've got about maybe 20 days, 23 days, something like that, before closing time.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all watching the calendar.
Yeah, okay.
Anyone else? Any closing remarks, questions? Okay, I'm going to turn it back to David for public comment.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Operator, if you'll ask our listeners if anyone would like to submit a question.
Absolutely. At this time, I would like to remind everyone, in order to ask a question, please press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. And your first question comes from the line of Melissa Downer.
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone for being there and for everything that you're doing on this committee to speed up this process. And I really just wanted to make a comment. It's good to have the Army have someone sit in today. And I just wanted to say that we will not accept an open burn. Don't want to see any more test burns. Don't want to see any open burn of any kind. And we expect the Army to protect us. So I just wanted to make that comment and let it be known that I think I speak for all the concerned citizens of Minden and the surrounding areas that that's unacceptable. I understand it may need to stay on the table, but we will not accept an open burn.
Your next question comes from the line of David Madden.
My question is, Dr. Salvatore, what are the downstream pollutants that come out of the SQO system? How pure is the water to be discharged into our public sewers or tributaries?
Well, I wouldn't recommend discharging it into the public tributaries without extensive testing. But if the SQO unit works properly, and I understand that the unit that they had out there previously got a bad rep because it was not operated properly with all the necessary parts. But if it does work properly, you should have no more than carbon dioxide, perhaps some carbon monoxide that will need some additional treatment, some oxidation, and you will have some NOx species generated, NOx being the nitrogen oxide species, but at a lower level than what you would see from an incineration process. So NOx species can always be scrubbed, as can carbon monoxide. Carbon dioxide is just a product of combustion. So as long as we're going to do a combustion process, we would have to expect it. Now, technically, SQO is not combustion. It's oxidation, but it will produce that species. It'll produce carbon dioxide as its main byproduct.
Yeah, it would have to be tested. This is Bob Flournoy. It'd have to be tested before it would ever be discharged, because if you discharge it into a creek or anything, tributary, you have to be in compliance with whatever the permit requires.
Yeah. And I want to add that the main advantage of SQUO is supercritical water is able to dissolve organic materials, and that's mostly what you have here. It acts, in fact, like an organic solvent, and it'll dissolve these greasy compounds that otherwise would never get into regular water. You know, oil and water don't mix. But supercritical water and these oily compounds that are in this material, they do mix, and that's the beauty of the process. It requires a lot of energy, but it does the job as a destructive technique probably better than anything else. You won't be able to repurpose anything, but you'll be pretty confident that with testing for that assurance that you'll be safe.
This is Slavo Nick. Let me put one more comment on it. There is always some risk, and that requires monitoring every technology because, you know, even the critical water oxidation and hydrolysis, this is an oxidation product, so there is a potential of formation of partial oxidation products. But that's why there's a required monitoring process, you know, and testing if the water is clean enough to be released to the environment.
Our next question comes from the line of Ralph Hayes. Mr. Hayes, your line is open.
Hi, I'm Ralph Hayes with Eldorado Engineering. Our company's done some development with detonation chambers, and I just wanted to clear up some of the comments. I agreed with the gentleman's comment that he didn't think it was very well suited for this. The detonation chambers have been used to destroy munitions, and they actually have to have donor explosive to get the other things to go. So M6, which is non-detonable, you'd have to bring in some other explosive to get it to go and then package the M6 in such a way that it would detonate. And it's a very small batch process, and it's just I agree with him, it's not suitable for this, and I think people overlook the fact of the donor explosive that's required also, not just the material. However, our company has developed a contained burn process that can be used to burn large batches by burning in a contained burn vessel that's like open burning indoors where you contain all the emissions and then scrub them. And we're building a facility in Letterkenny Army Depot that can process up to 8,000-pound batches.
Whoa.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Wonderful.
I'd like to ask him a question, okay? This is Dr. Bob Flanoy.
Go ahead, Bob.
Are you connected, since you're in El Dorado, are you connected in any way with Clean Harbors, the remediation or the disposal company?
Hi, this is David. I'm sorry. So he's already gone off the line, but we will get his contact information out to folks for follow-up.
Okay.
I wanted to follow up with one thing that the last gentleman said from Eldorado Engineering. So the donor explosives are something which some of these detonation chambers need to use for whole munitions. But when we're talking about something like M6, this will detonate on its own with heating in these closed chambers, whether it's a vacuum chamber or a vortex chamber. So donor explosives are not necessary if you have the proper equipment in place that can heat it up. So I just wanted to point that out because I have looked into that.
Brian, can I ask you one question, Dolores?
Yes.
We ignore this CBI, that clean burning igniter, what they got about 380,000 pounds. Is that something that is used as a donor explosive, or is that going to be a separate thing to get rid of?
No, I don't think you would want to use it as a donor explosive. But as far as that goes, that's my biggest concern out there right now because CBI has no deterrence in it at all. It's pure nitrocellulose with 1% stabilizer, and it'll go off in a flurry, in a fury. And it's something that I think needs to be dealt with in a priority because it does degrade faster, too, because it does not have the plasticizer and it does not have the deterrent in it that M6 does.
Thank you, Brian. Back to operator questions.
Your next question comes from the line of Tom Hall.
Good day. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Great. When you ask who's on the line, I tried to answer, but it just didn't come through. I work for Tech Law Incorporated, and we're in support of Weston and the EPA on this item. And I just want to let you know that I sat through the entire thing. Okay?
And who are you with?
Tech Law Incorporated, TECH, capital LAW, one word.
What do y'all do?
We support the Environmental Protection Agency in almost every region but one, in the cleanup of military munitions, explosives, etc., on closed transferring, as they used to call it, but they don't call it that anymore, military installations.
Oh, okay.
So I have a question for you because you said that you are building the facility somewhere else to treat some of the munition or propellant.
That was the previous caller.
That's not me.
Oh, it was a different caller?
That was the previous caller. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Did you have a question, or you just wanted to let us know that you were listening?
I think we've already lost him on the mic.
Okay.
So we need to ask Mr. Hall if his firm is intending to bid on this project at Camp Minden.
I don't believe they're that.
Just a consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Doug, that wraps up our community citizen comments that we had lined up. I know that we'll probably be getting a lot more calls from vendors, and so something we should talk about is how we want to handle vendors in the future.
Right. Well, yes, we're going to have that conversation shortly about how we deal with this whole vendor question and what's possible.
All right, operator. Let's wrap up the call today, and thank everybody for joining us.
This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect your lines. Presenters, please stay on the line.